Recording in progress. Welcome to the show, Renee.
Thank you, Brad.
Okay, cool. Okay, so everything is up and going, and that looks like it's going live. Recording started, that joke probably wasn't funny for people who couldn't hear the computer in a computer voice tell me that the recording was started. My timing sucks.
No.
Anyways, so I'm just going to introduce you right now. Like we're already recording this. There's no like big setup like welcome to the Sparks of Courage show, whatever.
Yeah.
I want to introduce you. How do you say your last name? Dieffenderfer?
Dieffenderfer.
Dieffenderfer?
Yeah,
Okay.
Dieffenderfer.
Renee Dieffenderfer. And Renee's going to share her story, but we met, what is it, 5-6 years ago? 20, when did we?
It was 5 to 6 years ago. I founded Creations for Cures 6 years ago. So I want to say maybe 5.
Yeah. Okay. So we met in a self-expression and leadership program through Landmark. And the design of that whole program is all about helping people find something they really care about that they can create that actually gives back to the world without you having to do everything. Like you're the start and you're the seed of it, but it goes forth beyond you, right? So that being said, thanks for sharing some time, and I hope this helps with your cause that you're up for. But why don't you share a little bit about what Creations for Cures is, your backstory, and I'm just going to get curious and I'll start asking questions and seeing what happens from there.
That sounds good. Well, as I mentioned earlier, I founded Creations for Cures about 6 years ago, almost 6.5 now. And I came up with the idea because I'm a cancer survivor. I had Hodgkin's lymphoma, and I went through 6 months of fairly aggressive chemo. And during that time, I started watercoloring. My mom and my sister sent me a paint kit, and I was getting really burnt out on TV. I watched every episode of every season I could, and I was getting burnt out. So I started watercoloring, and I found so much joy and release in it. Sometimes I would study images, and it gave me a really productive way to use my brain and try to recreate them. And other times I would just let my imagination run. And so when we were in the leadership class, it was really in that class where I started to kind of put together my experience and what I wanted to give back. So fast forward, I know what it's like to be a cancer survivor. I want to help children, and I see the value in doing art. It's the creating process. It's the process of doing art that I see valuable. So I put all that together, and I started sharing this idea with people, and it just started to snowball. So we founded our 501c3, registered, and then earned that. And then our mission is to bring the healing power of art to children who are battling cancer and other serious illnesses. So we have an art program. It consists of delivering art kits, which I have an example of one here. So we deliver these art kits. We stock them full of art supplies. And then our volunteers go into the hospital or the Ronald McDonald House, and they do art with kids in person.
Oh, that's really cool. I'm going to dig in some more details there, but how old were you when you went through your bout of cancer?
I was 28. So yeah, I was 28, which actually Hodgkin's lymphoma is an interesting cancer. It attacks your blood cells, turn on you when you're either a child or an older, much older adult. And so I was, I think, fairly old to get Hodgkin's lymphoma. But I was diagnosed in 2012. Okay. And the same year, my father died from cancer. So 2012 was a real doozy in the cancer department. But so much has come out of it that's been great.
Yeah, that department sucks.
It really does. Every year.
The leadership sucks in that whole area. So what, I mean, what was the, why kids? I had it in my head that you're a young kid that overcame this, like a little, 7, 8, 9, 10. So why'd you go younger? Why not? Why do you not like adults is what I'm asking.
You know what? I do believe someday that we will fold in adult patients into our mission. But
Yeah.
it started with children, and it was really so two. One, it was the heartstrings. And I had some of my nurses when I was going through chemo, they would make comments and I'd say, you know what, Renee, you complain about the stuff kids complain about, not adults. So I just think I really resonated
You
with
said you complain about this. Complain? Is that what you said?
complain. Yeah. So some of the issues that I have were childlike issues that they
Huh?
weren't with like the same as adults. I don't necessarily know specifically. I think one thing that they referred to in that sense was the taste in your mouth when you get chemo, and you get an infusion. At least for me, I had this gross taste in my mouth. It was like chewing on a dirty nickel. It was awful. And so I think that they that was kind of comical for them, for me to complain about that and not complain
Yeah.
about, some of the other things like losing my hair and all that. But why kids? So it was one, heartstrings. Two, it's just something inside me told me to help children because it's really, really not fair. And I thought that the impact could be multiplied because I thought about parents with children going through it.
Yeah.
But really, I really centered it around wanting to change the world. And I believe that when you're a child, you're still learning and you have all of these experiences. And it's a pivotal moment for you to choose a road that you want to go down. And when you go through something traumatic, then you've got some subconscious, conscious choices to make on what you do when you make it through that. And so I wanted to be part of delivering kindness, inspiring children, because those children will get through and fight for their health and come out the other side. And then they will be a part of giving more kindness and really changing the world. So,
What's going on with you right now? What are you present to? You seem like a good emotional.
oh, yeah, I'm just super passionate about it.
I
Yeah, I'm just very
definitely know
passionate
that.
about it.
Yeah.
Yeah, and especially now because as things are starting to get reopened and I'm in the hospitals, then it becomes even more clear and it's even more obvious when you're doing art with kids that this is working and it's wanted, it's needed, and I just love it.
What's your favorite story so far?
Oh, a favorite story. Oh my gosh.
Just the
Oh, that
first.
is so tough. There's so many good ones. I mean, well, I would tell you, so in Miami, I was just there. It's not I can't say favorite because there's just so many beautiful moments. But more recently, I got to go to Florida and expand our art program to 4 children's hospitals in Florida. And we got to go to Nicholas in Miami, and it was a fairly larger event. So we don't, with our first time going in for Art Hour, just like your first time doing anything, we don't know what we're getting into.
Yeah.
So I have a team of volunteers. The night before, we packed up 100 art kits. And we all had the same question, what do we expect? We only know what to wear, what time to be there. And then I have my experience that I can share with the volunteers, to give them to help prep. But you don't really know until you get in the situation what you're going to really experience. So I've got this incredible team of volunteers. It's the day of, and we get to the hospital, we unload all the art kits, and then all of a sudden, what I would call a hurricane, which people in Miami are probably just like, that was nothing, Renee. But what I would call a hurricane, like moves in. And the area that we were in, we were on the first floor. It was pretty much when you first walk into the hospital. So it's this beautiful open area with tables and balloons. And it was so colorful. And we had all of our art kit boxes sitting there. And there were sliding doors. And every time the doors would open, I mean, the palm trees were just laying down and there was wind blowing sideways. So the doors would open and then the water cups would go flying and the tablecloths were moved. And it was amazing because it was one, really exciting because I do love a good thunderstorm. In Oregon, we just get, pretty much just a moderate drizzle, which is, I love the excitement of a thunderstorm. But in that setting, it was just, we were doing art and that was the focus and nobody was disturbed by it. Nobody was frightened. Everyone was just having a great time, laughing and painting. and creating their images. The volunteers were just over the moon grateful, and everybody was having a great time despite a torrential thunderstorm just outside the glass window where we all were. And so it was just a really beautiful moment. It was fun.
Kind of like they're kind of like a microcosm of what's happening for them at the moment.
Yeah,
A,
yeah,
a thunderstorm in their life, you know.
yeah, yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Um, so tell me, or tell the people who are watching, like how the program works, because these kids aren't like opening up their iPads and like, I'd like an art kit today, and they order it. You know, it's a subscription based service, but you know, share how you set it up and the idea behind that.
Yeah, absolutely. So we want to make sure that we protect the children and their privacy, and that we abide by all of the HIPAA laws and regulations. So meaning like we don't identify, we're not like hospital employees, and we want to make sure that we protect their health and their privacy. And so our relationships on an operational front really lie with the hospitals or the Ronald McDonald House. And so what we do is we work with the hospital on an estimate of what their patient census is. So, for example, would you have 50 patients coming in and out the doors in a month? What does your number look like as far as kids? And so once we get that idea, then we work with the hospital to customize the program. And we don't customize like every single detail. It's pretty standard so that we can scale and provide our program to hospitals all over the country. But we customize it in the sense of how often do we deliver kits? So is it monthly or quarterly? And then from there, we add on the art hour component. And then with COVID, right now we're in the sweet spot of reopening. And so that looks different for everybody too.
Yeah.
So for example, for Nicholas, I think we're going to do once a month it'll be more of like an event type of art hour where we'll be able to bring a bunch of kids together, socially distancing respectfully. And then for Ronald McDonald House, we're in there like every other week. And so the frequency and the schedule changes. One of the things that I wanted to make sure we did compared to some other nonprofits that I got to know was that we wanted to make it really easy for the hospitals to do business with us, so that we don't become like something else that somebody else has to do. We want our stakeholders and the nurses and the child life department to do what they do best, which is take care of their patients and support them with what they need at that time, and be freed up from having to manage us as volunteers. So some hospitals will actually go through an onboarding process so that we can move throughout on our own. So we are badged and we can kind of go in and out and not disrupt the healthcare side of things. But that's really it. I mean, we just customize our program operationally, and then financially, it doesn't cost anything for the hospitals. I believe that there are enough people out there that want to support what we're doing that don't necessarily have the time to go to the hospital and do art with kids, or to build the art kits, or do anything internally or operationally, that can support by making a donation. And so we wanted to make sure our model was going to free up the dollars for hospitals to pay for medicine and research.
So what does that mean logistically? So, um, like, how does your model actually work? How are you getting money?
We're very grassroots. We host fundraisers throughout the year,
Uh-huh.
and we're actually currently doing this. Like we scaled our art program, and now we're scaling our fundraising. So between our grassroots fundraisers and then corporate and individual gifts, that's really it. We do have on our website, you can buy Creations for Cures gear. And so kind of like, I mean, unfortunately, this jacket, they discontinued it. So it's a terrible example. But we have some really great gear that you can buy, and then we get a revenue share from that. And so we do have a retail model with that. And little teaser is we're trying to we've been working on how we can work with the arts community, so specifically artists. And without being the nonprofit that is just like every year it's our auction, can you donate something? I wanted our relationship to be mutually beneficial. And so we're one of our volunteers and a dear friend of mine, Ali, has created a collection for us And I don't want to spoil too much of what is coming next, but we're really excited to launch his collection. He's an incredible designer, and it's really branded around a inspirational theme. So stay tuned for that. I'm really, really excited.
So when we met up, you were sharing about a subscription too that people are doing, and that's part of the model as well. So if someone might want to make like an ongoing, like, hey, I've got kind of like a box kit, but it's going to kids or something, right?
Yeah, so you can do like a monthly donation. Our kits are valued at $20. So if you have the opportunity when you go on our website to donate, you can donate on a reoccurring basis and sponsor as many art kits as you'd like, knowing that they're about $20 a piece.
Okay,
Yeah.
cool. Now I haven't looked at the website or anything, but do you guys have like, and I don't know if this will go against HIPAA or anything, but maybe like an Instagram channel where you can kind of follow the art. Maybe it's just a picture of the art. Are you guys doing anything like that?
We are. So we're on Instagram, Facebook, and then those two platforms right now, that's where we have the most content.
Mhm.
So when we have, after a week of art hours, we'll post photos of when we can of kids who give permission to have their photo taken and their parents or just their artwork. But either way, you can follow us on Facebook, Instagram, and then we're coming up soon on TikTok. We've got a plan for TikTok, and so we'll be embracing that social media platform as well. So definitely follow.
Those, yeah, those one videos where like you can follow someone creating something.
Yeah.
I personally like to watch those, where you get to see something come to life, even if it's a kid doing something.
Yeah.
And like it, yeah. So I don't know. I'm throwing that idea out there. Like you guys could be the Bob Ross. Let the kids be the Bob Ross.
I know I messed around a little bit for years. I've had people telling me, "Oh, I should put my paintings out there." And for me, like I said in the beginning, it's more about the process. It's not necessarily the end result that is something that I'm really drawn to.
Yeah.
But I tinkered around with that, and I put out a couple of those fun videos, and they are fun to make. It's, I mean, I had to balance my phone on
Show me. Can you
my
show
water
me
cup.
like what you guys like? One of the kits. Can you show me inside of it, like what that looks like, and like a
Yeah.
little bit? I'm sure they're different for each one each month or something. But um, what's a typical kid gonna do? Um,
Well, this is like so this art kit model that I have here is to just test the size of the box. It was when we were manufacturing it. So we had a team of students at Cal Poly create this box. And so it's not like last month's art kit. So it's an example, but it's not the entire package. But in each art kit, there's always going to be something to either draw or paint on. So paper,
mhm.
we'll also include coloring pages for anybody. We know not everybody is feeling the inspiration that we can feel when we're getting ready to do art. So we include coloring sheets as well, just as a really great outlet. Colored pencils, markers, crayons, paints. My favorite are the paints. Super, super fun. And then glue and scissors. So we just did our order for next month's art kits. And there's a really neat project that we'll be doing where it is a gratitude, it's like a hanging gratitude thing that you can hang. It's made with popsicle sticks, and it says you write what you're grateful for on each popsicle stick. It's pretty cool.
Oh, cool.
So that will be for next month.
All right. That's awesome.
Yeah.
And each month you guys have like a theme or something like that, or just kind of keep things kind of moving and grooving.
Yep.
Uh,
We created all of our own projects, so each month is different.
okay, so now I want to ask you about the personal journey, because this is like what's happened after 5 years.
Mm-hmm.
It didn't start out like that. It started out as, what was the original thought? Was it you just want to help kids, or like, what was that? And I want to kind of hear the journey, like some of the more details the last few years of what it's been really like, because you haven't been doing this full time. It's been a kind of like a side hustle, like, and
Yeah.
you know you just took a big leap of faith too, and I want to talk about that too.
Yeah. So when I first started, I was a consultant for audiologists in private practice. And then I also consulted for ENTs and otolaryngology departments in universities. So I had it was an extraordinary job. I loved it. I was good at it, and it paid really, really well. So you're right. I put Creations for Cures together early mornings, lunch breaks, at night, on the weekends, wherever I could. And when it started out as like it seemed to be like I would do something and then something would happen and then I could control the growth. So if I didn't do anything, like I had grace where I didn't have like, people or hospitals counting on me. My email wasn't, it was a very quiet email compared to my consulting job. It was a very quiet CFC email compared to my consulting job. But, I just started to really piece it together. And I remember thinking at the very beginning, okay, well, I volunteered before, but I volunteered at like soup kitchens and, just kind of one-off events. I had never been a volunteer at an organization for a committed amount of time. So one of my first steps was to volunteer at Dornbecker Children's Hospital, which is one of the hospitals we're in now. And so I sit down, I fill out the application. I'm super pumped. I'm like, I'm going to be a volunteer at the Children's Hospital. And a few days go by, I'm checking my email, and I got denied. And I got denied because I had to work Monday through Friday, 8 to 5. And at that time too, coming back from being out for cancer, I didn't have, I guess, the courage, or didn't want to ask for time off to do something that was new. I was fresh back. And so I got really fired up and I thought, okay, well, this makes sense because they need people during the day. Like I get it. I used to consult, so in the medical world. So I understood that they need people during the day. But I thought about how many people were like me that wanted to give back and wanted to volunteer and do good, that really had to stick to their schedule, their Monday through Friday, 8 to 5 job. And so I already knew what I wanted to do with kids and helping children that were in a hospital and fighting for their health through the healing benefits of art. And now I wanted to create volunteer opportunities and to create a community. And so, it was easy for me to say at the beginning, hey, I want to have a nonprofit. I did not really understand everything that went into the nonprofit. But what I did understand, which helped me pull the trigger on it, was that it was, going into nonprofit, creating one means that you want something to outlive you. And it's not something that you personally own. And so there's a risk with that because, when you have ownership of something, then you can control, your legacy and where it goes to next. And, you do hear from time to time founders and presidents and people on the board, they get turned. But I wanted to take that risk because I believed in the mission. And so that was my first step, was really trying to be a volunteer and not being able to, and then turning around, creating a nonprofit, and then getting into the hospital that way. So it's kind of funny because I'm like, ha, gotcha.
Stuck in.
Yeah, gotcha. I'm here.
So how many times did you want to quit over the last 5 years?
Oh, zero.
None?
Zero. None. Absolutely none.
Really?
Yeah,
Wow.
none. That thought has not occurred to me. If I thought that I was crazy, or, will I need to work a job to pay the bills, or, on the funding front, I had those questions, but never want to give this up.
Well, that's really cool because I think a lot of people have those thoughts of like they're going after something and they want to create something and it's not happening, right?
Yeah.
And what I guess it just must have been how much you cared, I'm guessing, about
Yeah, we've been absolutely how much I care, but I'm also not the only driving force.
Yeah.
So, we have a team of people that are driving this ship with me. And we are met with such gratitude. Like I don't have to, I have a very positive relationship with selling. So you hear people say, oh, I want to be a salesperson, and all of that. Well, I have a sales background and I love it. And what's refreshing about what I do here is I don't feel like I have to work terribly hard to come up with the framing or the strategy on how to get somebody involved. I mean, not everybody's going to want to be involved. I get that. There are so many other needs and areas, like that's the hard part. It's not creating a nonprofit every year based on, what everything going on in the world and all the people that need help. But it's just snowballed. At this point now it's growing, and it's going to keep growing with or without me. And I wouldn't give it up for anything.
So I want to hear about that, because it was just you in the beginning, right?
Yeah.
So had a vision, right? And I know the design of the SELP program, but I want you to express your what happened there, and the kind of the story of like, how did you create that? Like, what did you start doing? Because and the reason I'm asking that is because there's a lot of people that want to start something, but overwhelm shuts them down. And the whole idea behind this particular program is that you don't have to do everything, but the one thing that you do is you start to enroll people in your idea.
Yeah.
And that they really believe in it too, and then that gets them inspired.
Yeah. No,
I'll let you I don't want to share it all.
No, I mean, that's a great point. For nonprofit, and that was one of the things that was like, okay, now I want to have a nonprofit. And then learning, okay, well, what does it mean? What does the government need from you? What does the community need from you? What do your donors and volunteers and, all of your stakeholders need from you? And so one of the things that you need in order to be a 501c3 is you need officers and you need a board of directors. And so even though, yes, I totally started this and I've invested the most time in it, I didn't really feel alone in the beginning. So I did what most nonprofit leaders do, and I recruited family because they're the closest to me. They love me. They want to help me. And so I recruited family, and we just started doing this together. So, and then over time, as I started to build and, I started to get momentum, then I learned, okay, I started looking at things like what does the board of directors need to look like, actually? Like, and then all the research and all the learning that goes behind it. So even though it did feel like I was alone in the very beginning, like in the conception, I guess, of it, I didn't feel alone in, like, once we were a 501c3, I was like, no, I'm definitely not alone now. We've got a team. And I felt a sense of responsibility, like you said, I enrolled them in this mission and this vision, and now I had a sense of responsibility to keep charging ahead.
And so you start out with just yourself, and you quickly had just a few people and family that were like, okay, cool. So how has that evolved? Like, now you've gone from that many to what's that look like?
That's a great question. So one of the things, so there's a couple of themes here. And one of the things that really charges me up is when I hear people say, oh, I used to work in nonprofit but I had to leave because I couldn't afford to, pay the bills or, pay my mortgage or take a family trip or whatever. And so I started learning about nonprofit and like traditional nonprofits and how they operate. And then sort of like this innovative sweet spot of how some of the newer generations were starting to see creative ways to lead nonprofits. So we're in this amazing spot right now because we've got our 3 officers. Those officers sit on the board. I'm an officer, but I'm a non-voting board member because I'm also the executive director. I wear so many hats, it's crazy. But now we are at the point where we're forming a board of directors and an advisory board. So that we can see, so the difference really is the board of directors are our influencers. They're our leaders in the community. So by design, our board need to have representation everywhere that we are. And so the board of directors is going to be responsible for helping us with fundraising, sharing our mission, proactively sending us some ideas or some considerations, but they're really going to be like our pioneers and our leadership in the community, like boots on the ground. Our advisory board is going to be a team of people that we specifically assemble based on their experience and their expertise. So, for example, we want to make sure that we have somebody with a strong financial nonprofit background on the advisory board. And so what we'll do is at the end of every year, we'll go in front of the advisory board. We're going to present our, here's our annual review. These are the goals we set. These are the KPIs, the key performance indicators, all of our measurables. And we're going to review all of here's what we did. And then we're going to introduce, here's our plan, here's what we need, and just kind of go through an entire business review. And then the advisory board will be responsible for voting and saying, yes, great job, dialed in, rock and roll, go forth. Or they're going to say, actually, we see some holes here, some gaps here. What are you going to do about this? Well, there's a disconnect here. And then they'll help us make sure that we have the right charter for the coming year. So 2 different boards with 2 different purposes, but we just now locked in on that framework. So we're currently recruiting for both of those boards.
That's awesome. So you've gone from just a few people. How many people in hospital and volunteers do you have now?
Just about, well, it's growing, but we have about 33 now.
33
volunteers.
Okay.
We have 33 volunteers across the country. And then we have 13 hospitals we send art kits to. And then we've got 4, 5, 6 facilities that we're in doing we've reopened Art Hour since COVID. And then we're working with a hospital in Texas to figure out the reopening plan for Art Hour. So
that's awesome.
Thank you.
Because you started off up in Portland, right? Yep. And now you're down to Miami, and you said Texas too?
Yeah, so we send art kits to hospitals in Texas, Loyola, so right outside of Chicago. We have a facility in North Carolina we take care of. And then we've got a handful of hospitals in New Jersey, Pennsylvania that we send art kits to. But our Art Hour program isn't in every hospital yet. So we're starting to open that up. So Florida was the first expansion where we did the entire thing, where we did the entire art program all at once for those 4 hospitals.
Awesome.
Yeah.
So what's been your most courageous moment inside of this?
Probably just taking, I don't, it's such a great question, because I would say, right off the cuff, what I was thinking before I overthink it to death, I would say leaving a paying job, working for somebody else, and going 100% full-time into CFC. I've wanted to do it since the very, very, very beginning, but we never had the funding, and I was very, very comfortable working in the roles that I was working in. I was a consultant. I was good at it. I loved every client, every member I got to work with. And so I felt like I was living the best of both worlds. I was getting paid really well, and I was loving both of what I was doing. And then I was recruited to investigate fraud. And that was so fun and interesting. So I investigated large Ponzi schemes, like multi-million-dollar Ponzi schemes, for about a year for my friend who started a business. And it was very interesting and a very great experience. But I also realized in that moment while I was working there that it was getting closer and closer to where, I was at an intersection. I was at an intersection of CFC was growing. We had these hospitals that wanted us to go there, bring them our services. We had more volunteers. I felt like I was hitting a capacity point where I was starting to suffer with my leadership. So I just felt like I'm not giving enough time. I'm constantly running from one thing to the next. I'm not always present in every conversation because I'm thinking about what's next on my calendar. And so that started to intersect with, it becomes more and more clear over time that this is my purpose, this is my passion, this is my legacy. And so those 2 points really came to head. And with the support of my husband, we just decided, all right, let's do it. Worst case scenario, you go back to working somewhere else, got a sales background. I'm sure I could find a shoe store to employ me. I don't think it's going to get to that point. I really don't. But I figured I had nothing to lose. I'm just going to try it out. Just got to do it.
Can't hurt, right?
Exactly. I mean, there's so many backup options. So
Yeah, I think well, you kind of beat me to the punch. I was going to dig in and ask, like more about the moment when you took the leap and all this kind of stuff. And
oh yeah.
I'm like, she's answering all the questions. Dang it. Because I hope it inspires someone to hear that if they have something really they care about, but they're scared to leave, their job, like when's the right moment, and it sounded like you guys had a conversation.
Yeah,
And
we did. And I'll tell you one of the things. So one of my mentors is Martin Noches. Little shout out in case he's watching. He's one of my forever mentors. He's amazing. And one of the things he told me over a breakfast at a diner in Vancouver, Washington, was that for you, in order for you to want to be successful and you want to grow like what some would consider like a second job, then you need to work a second job. So like you really need to prioritize and do the hard, impactful things first thing, and to have that discipline, because it's easy to tie yourself up with tasks. There's easy tasks, there's hard tasks, there's tasks in the middle, and then there's the ones that really make a big difference and are impactful. So he helped me prioritize and gave me just a ton of confidence and encouragement. And so I wouldn't recommend that you just run out and you quit your job and you're like, the money will come. I do believe in vision boards and envisioning, and I think that is a big part of it. But I also believe in just making sure like that you do have some savings, that you do have a fallback plan, and that you are, humble enough to execute a backup plan if you need to. And so I think that's really what it came down to. Is my husband and I were like, okay, we're in a place, we're not traveling, it's a pandemic. So we'll just pull back on some of the things that we used to spend money on before, and it hasn't negatively impacted us. It's been great. So
that's awesome.
yeah.
Yeah, I hope someone, what I hear is that you really found something that uh, you deeply care about,
Mm-hmm.
that it's easy for you to make the choice of, well, I'm glad I did it and I don't regret, leaving that job. I think a lot of people aren't clear about that for themselves in what they care about most. Um, and I hope that your story inspires someone to say, you know what, I really care about X, and I think it's worth a shot to go after it. It doesn't mean they have to start a business. It doesn't mean they have to start a nonprofit. It could just be something that they really want to do, but they really care about it. Like it helps. I can tell that it brings life to you. Like life comes through you when you're doing it. Sometimes it means you're going to cry all over the place, but that's cool.
I'm a crier. Anybody knows me, I'm a crier.
Yeah.
I do think having milestones helps make it, because it's subjective and objective in decision making like that. So like
Yeah.
your vision of how you see how things, when you start to get real, when you think about it, you actually envision it in your head and you daydream about, okay, what is this thing that I want to do or be a part of? And you get really, really excited. And then you just establish the milestones. So for me, I had a certain dollar amount of donations that I wanted to get in. And I wanted like to be able to say, okay, if this has happened once, I can make this happen again. And I wanted positive feedback from hospitals. I wanted, so I created some milestones. And once I started hitting those, it became like even more of a no-brainer to make the leap.
Yeah, that's really cool.
Thanks.
Okay, so the one bit of information that hasn't been released yet is where can people find out more information about, Creations for Cures, anything else that you might want to share so people could follow, or if they want to become a donator, a donor, donator, whatever that is.
Yes, so you can visit our website, creationsforcures.org. For is spelled FOR. And on there, you can subscribe to our newsletter, as well as find more information on us, who we are, what we do, how the program works. But following us on Facebook, Instagram, and TikTok again, it's just Creations for Cures. You can easily find us and follow us. That's how you'll stay abreast of all the current information that we have, and also just get to see the smiling faces of the children that we bring joy to through our program. And the creative artwork. I mean, it's amazing what there was one house that one of the kids did when I was in Florida. I want to move in there. It was just so beautiful and fun. So definitely recommend following us on social media. Again, that's just at Creations for Cures.
That's awesome. All right. Well, thank you very much for your time. I encourage everybody to look up the website, follow you guys on social media, all that stuff. And more importantly, or not more importantly, but equally important is do something you care about, right? And that inspires you, because you're just going to bring life to other people.
Yeah. Find your fulfillment.
Yeah, exactly.
Yep.
Well, thanks, Renee. I'm going to stop the recording. We'll go offline and we'll chat here in a second. All right. Okay. Bye. Or stay. Don't leave. There's always the awkward moment. Okay. Bye.